Today we will continue with the second part of the movie Parasite. If you haven't watched the first part, please check it out. A serial killer named Uragami discovers he has a special ability to detect parasites among humans and witnesses these parasites feeding on humans. The police capture him and attempt to use him to identify people who are hosts of the parasite. When they bring Shinichi before him, he immediately realizes that Shinichi is not fully human, but he decides not to expose him. As Shinichi is on his way home after being released, Migi senses the presence of a parasite nearby and takes him to find one feeding on a human. Shinichi easily takes him down, piercing his heart with his hand, which impresses Migi. Shinichi hears a noise and rushes to check, but he doesn't notice a journalist named Shiro, who has been secretly spying on him and Migi. Later at home, while Migi helps Shinichi with cooking, they discuss how ever since Takeshi was elected mayor, the city government has become a stronghold for parasites. Shinichi decides that once he becomes stronger, he will kill the leader. At the city hall, Takeshi learns that another parasite has been eliminated by Shinichi and considers killing the boy. However, Ryoko, who is now a mother to a human baby, insists on leaving him alone as she intends to use Shinichi and Migi for her research on coexisting with humans. It turns out Ryoko uses Shiro to spy on Shinichi. He shows her the evidence he gathered and suggests they should make it public, as the government has been concealing information about the parasites. However, Ryoko advises against it, asking to wait as she needs time to think. Shiro listens to her because he hopes to develop a relationship with her. One day after school, Shinichi notices Shiro following him. He leads him to an empty place and confronts him. Migi suggests killing Shiro, but Shinichi refuses to kill a human. They go to Shiro's home and attempt to delete all the photos. Shiro suggests cooperating with the police, but Shinichi refuses and mentions that his mother was killed by the police. They then learn that Ryoko hired Shiro to spy on them. Migi reveals that she herself is a parasite and the smartest among them, but Shiro doesn't believe it, so they find Ryoko to tell her not to pretend to be human anymore, while Shiro eavesdrops. Shinichi advises him to stay away, but Shiro is angered by being deceived and decides to continue his investigation. He goes to the city hall to interview the mayor, but as soon as he leaves, the parasites discover the hidden recorder he planted. Takeshi orders his subordinates to eliminate both Shiro and Shinichi without informing Ryoko. Later that night, Migi senses the presence of 5 parasites approaching with the intent to kill. Shinichi tries to run away, but he is still found by Miki, who has 5 parasites residing separately in his head and limbs. A chase ensues, and as they flee, Migi notices that Miki's attacks are inaccurate, with conflicts between its tentacles, and suggests they can outmaneuver him with speed. They then swing by a tree to surprise him and swiftly chop off his head. Just as they are about to pierce his heart to kill him for good, someone approaches, forcing them to run away. After they leave, the parasite in the right arm takes the place of the head, revealing himself to be Goto, who then orders Miki to return to his right arm. Meanwhile, Shiro returns home to find police in front of his building. Sensing that something is not right, he rushes back home and is devastated to find his daughter killed by the parasites. The next day, Ryoko goes to the city hall to confront Takeshi about why they attempted to kill Shiro and Shinichi without her approval, and why they only ended up killing Shiro's daughter. She warns that such actions will only anger him and could lead to the extermination of all parasites. She then threatens to kill Takeshi and other parasites if they act without her consent again. Meanwhile, detectives Hirama and Tsuji interrogate Shiro, but he remains silent and is determined to take revenge on his own. That evening, after Ryoko finishes breastfeeding her child, she plays with the baby and is surprised to find her maternal instincts flourishing inside her. Just then, she senses the presence of parasites and leaves, while Detective Hirama learns that Shiro has escaped from the hotel and rushes to find him. Ryoko lures 3 parasites to the parking lot, who were sent by Takeshi to kill her, but Ryoko effortlessly eliminates them and returns home, only to find a note left by Shiro in the crib saying that the child is in his hands. The following day, Detective Hirama finally gets a hold of Shiro, trying to convince him to disclose his location so he can help, and manages to track him down. Ryoko then receives the address from Shiro and calls Shinichi for help. Meanwhile, Commander Yamagishi leads his special assault team to the city hall, preparing to exterminate the parasites. They organize people to evacuate the building and have them undergo an X-ray that can distinguish humans from the parasites. Once parasites are detected, they are taken away and executed on the spot. One parasite tries to escape and starts attacking, causing the crowd to panic. The police begin to exterminate the parasites, bringing Uragami to help identify and kill nearly all of them. The police then surround Takeshi, who distrusts humans and believes that humans are the real parasites of the earth. The police fire numerous shots, killing him, but it turns out he was actually a human who supports the parasites. At that moment, Goto shows up. Uragami sees him and becomes terrified, confirming that he is not human. The police begin firing at him, but he creates some kind of shield to easily block the bullets, scaring off Uragami. Goto then declares his intention to kill all humans and prepares to engage in battle. Meanwhile, Ryoko and Shinichi rush to the zoo, where Shiro threatens to throw the baby from the bridge to avenge his daughter. Ryoko explains that she did not order the elimination, and Shinichi tries to calm him down, but he ignores them and insists on causing her the same pain. The police finally arrive at the scene just as Shiro is about to throw the baby. Ryoko exposes herself to stab him and saves her son. Shiro reveals that his intention was to force Ryoko to expose herself as a parasite in front of everyone before falling to his death. The police draw their weapons and warn Ryoko not to move, but she continues walking towards them with her son in her arms. They open fire on her, and she shields her son with her hair. Shinichi reveals that the baby is human, prompting Detective Hirama to command his officers to cease fire. Ryoko hands the baby to Shinichi, asking him to raise the child for a normal life before she succumbs to her injuries. Shinichi then breaks into tears because Ryoko reminds him of his late mother, who also died while protecting her child. Afterward, Detective Tsuji receives a call and informs Hirama that the operation at the city hall has ended in total failure, with the entire SAT team being wiped out. They arrive at the city hall, and Migi tells Shinichi that this is the man they defeated the other night with 5 parasites in his body. Goto stands atop the building and throws down Yamagishi's head before jumping down, landing effortlessly. Hirama orders Shinichi to run away and shoots at Goto, but he stops the bullets and throws them back at him, killing Hirama. Goto then goes after Shinichi and Migi, who steal a car to flee. Just when Shinichi thinks they have escaped, Migi informs him that their distance from Goto is 0. Suddenly, Goto jumps onto their car roof and attacks them, causing the car to crash off the road. Fortunately, Migi manages to pull them back and save them, while Goto also survives the crash. Shinichi runs into the forest, where Migi comes up with a plan to separate himself from Shinichi's body. When Goto arrives, he can only sense Migi. The two then engage in battle while Shinichi attempts to sneak up from behind, but Goto overpowers him and throws him away. Migi asks Shinichi to run away as he tries to keep the parasite busy, but Shinichi refuses to leave him behind. Goto gains the upper hand and cuts off Migi's limbs one by one, eventually defeating him. As Goto turns to eliminate Shinichi, Migi uses his last strength to distract him, allowing Shinichi to escape before Goto finishes Migi off. Shinichi runs in the rain until he takes shelter in an abandoned building and receives a call from Satomi, who finds him and helps him tend to his wounds. He is devastated by Migi's death, but Satomi comforts him, reminding him that she's still there for him. Their interaction soon escalates to intimacy. The next morning, Shinichi notices an eye has appeared in his right arm, indicating that Migi's cells are still inside him. However, he quickly realizes that Goto can locate him and tries to flee with Satomi. However, Goto has already arrived. Shinichi tells his girlfriend to leave and reveals his location to lure Goto to a garbage disposal plant where a battle ensues. Shinichi grabs a metal rod and stabs Goto with it, but it barely does any harm to him. As Goto launches a final attack, Shinichi manages to block the blow, and as soon as their arms touch, they start to merge, and Migi comes to life. Migi reveals that he was absorbed by Goto and damaged Goto's nervous system while there. Migi also explains that the metal rod Shinichi used was filled with radioactive material, causing Goto's body to go out of control and transform into an extremely grotesque creature until he explodes. However, Goto's heart is still beating, and his brain attempts to summon the rest of his cells to rebuild himself. Shinichi picks him up and throws him into the flames of the garbage incinerator. A few days later, Migi tells Shinichi that the radioactive material has also damaged some of his cells. It's difficult for Migi to maintain his current form, so he will need to go into hibernation for years, or until death. Migi tells Shinichi that he will finally have his right hand back, and it's time for them to part ways. Migi thanks Shinichi for everything before turning into a normal hand, leaving Shinichi heartbroken. Several years later, Shinichi and Satomi go to visit Ryoko's son, who lives a normal life, just as his mother would have hoped. Afterwards, Satomi asks Shinichi to buy coffee, but when Shinichi returns, he sees Satomi being taken away by the serial killer Uragami. Shinichi quickly follows them to the top of a building where the psychopath holds Satomi at knife point and asks Shinichi what a real monster thinks of him. Satomi tells Shinichi he doesn't need to answer and calls Uragami a monster, expressing pity for him. Angered, Uragami pushes her off the building as Shinichi rushes towards them. He punches Uragami and tries to grab Satomi's hand, but she slips from his fingers and falls off the building. Shinichi begins to recall all the moments he has spent with Satomi, but Migi interrupts, telling him that he is tired and he is on his own. Shinichi then realizes that he is holding Satomi's hand and pulls her up. He realizes that Migi woke up for a second just to save Satomi. Shinichi then reveals that the dog he threw into the trash, he eventually decided to bury under a tree.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out our channel for more videos.